Does your chest tighten when your phone rings and you see that it's someone in your family who you know needs something? Does your stomach drop if you get a text message from a family member that says, we need to talk? If you're already exhausted before you say yes to a whole plethora of things that your family of origin may need from you, this episode is for you, my friend. Well, hello there, and welcome to this episode of the Terri Cole Show. I'm so glad that you're here. In this episode, I'm actually responding to a bunch of emails that I got from you guys. So before we get into it, if you are new to my channel, well, hello and welcome. Please make sure that you subscribe and hit that little bell icon so that you get notified every time I roll out something new, which is every Tuesday and every Thursday. I appreciate you being here. That's all I want to say on my YouTube channel. You guys are so great. You're so nice to each other. It's such an active channel. I just appreciate you. So let's move it on into today's content. Family obligations are something that I had my own complicated relationship with growing up. A lot of it has to do with the role in the family system. And I felt super loyal to my family of origin, my mother and my sisters in particular. And it was complicated for me when I fell in love with my husband and I became a bonus mom to 3 teenage sons. And there was so much going on, and you can't really prioritize both. And I think that there's a natural shift that happens when you have a family of your own, or like me, you marry a family. And when I was sort of the one keeping it all together in my family of origin, now I had to really decide what I was going to do. So I was confronted with how much family obligation I had. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about family obligation, guilt, roles that we sort of didn't actively volunteer for, but the system just gave us, and why so many capable, loving, high-functioning people feel sort of trapped by the responsibilities that they're quietly resenting. And what I'm going to give you, and you can get this at terricole.com/guide, is I'm giving you a bunch of prompts that will really get to the bottom of how obligated you feel in your life. And listen, I'm not saying that this means get rid of your family. All I'm saying is that what I'm going to be sharing with you in this episode is how you can make the distinction between what you're doing because it's your role, because it was a survival strategy, because you have some unspoken contract, and what you're doing because you actually want to be doing it. Because you didn't just wake up one day and decide to be the reliable one, right? You adapted to what was happening in your family system. And adaptations like that might have kept you safe, given you a place in childhood, and they could be costing you too much right now. So before we even get into the boundaries of it all, let's talk about the physicality of it all, right? Because your body knows where you need a boundary or when something isn't sitting right with you long before your mind does, right? So I want you to sort of ask yourself, what emotions arise in my body when I think about my current obligations? And where do I feel them most strongly? So what I'm going to be doing in the episode is I'm sort of going over the prompts, explaining them, but I will be giving you the prompts at the end of the episode, so you will be able to journal this stuff out yourself. But just allow yourself to feel that. What emotions arise in my body when I think about my current obligations, right? Sometimes it's a tight chest. That means pressure or fear of disappointing others. You could have a jaw tension, right? Exhaustion can also be resentment that hasn't been given language. It's just so heavy. And I know this, right? None of this means that you're ungrateful. It just means that you're a human being. Right? This is just being in a family system, because there's so many of the things that for years and years I did with my own family because I wanted to, because I love them. So why is it complicated? Because we feel guilty for feeling resentful for doing things for people that we love. And yet this is where we need to really dive deep into these prompts and have a deeper understanding. So now let's move into where it can get a little sneaky. Here's the next journal prompt. Which obligations feel self-imposed and which feel imposed by others? Because what I really realized about myself is that a lot of times I felt obligated and I was blaming other people, but the truth was I was putting myself on the hook to overfunction and overgive. So I want you to think about, let's make the distinction between these two. If you have internal pressure, right, it could be, the feeling is, this is who I am, right? I was so identified with my hero child role that I didn't even see, in my 20s, I didn't even see any opportunity to do it differently. But if there's there's also external pressure, which is what will happen if I don't do these things, right? So there's always fear of not having a place of belonging within the family system or being excommunicated from the tribe, so to speak. So if the pressure sounds like a threat to that belonging, it's not a preference. This really goes back to our conditioning. So that's an easier way to make that distinction. In every family system assigns roles, right? And obviously not formally, but energetically. We all know, and this is very well documented in family systems, we get it. So you could be the fixer, the strong one, the emotional container, the financial safety net, right? There's different roles, not just the ones that we see in like alcoholic family systems, which is more like the hero or the mascot or the invisible one. There's other roles that are outside of that, right? I had a client who was the eldest daughter, and she was financially responsible for the whole family. The father had lost his job. She was literally supporting everyone. And then they asked her to pay off her brother's medical, student loans. Like it just seemed so unfair, but that was her role. She was the financial safety net. And of course, she was in therapy because she resented it and felt terrible for resenting it. So roles are an efficient way the family organizes, right? And again, nobody talks about this, but a lot of times those roles are super expensive for the individual. Right, it costs a lot, like the client I was just telling you about. Not only did it cost her fiscally, but it cost her emotionally and bandwidth and all of that. Because you can't focus on your own life if you're endlessly focusing on everyone else's life and feeling responsible for it. So if you're the one that everyone leans on, I want you to ask yourself, who are the ones leaning on you, right? Who leans on you? Because what we care about is that you need people to lean on too. And so much of the time, if your assigned role is the hero or the golden child or the fixer, then you're really not getting the support that you need. Okay, so this next piece is not about villainizing anybody, right? We're not villainizing your family or you. We're really just naming the patterns because this is when we can change them. So here's the next journal prompt. Who consistently assumes access to your time, energy, or your money? And again, we're just getting honest, right? We don't have to make any big moves, but clarity is helpful for you. Because here's the thing, love without reciprocity becomes entitlement. And that really creates resentment. Think about the idea that caring, right, without consent, meaning you're just automatically doing it, becomes obligation, which is exactly what we're talking about in this episode of The Terri Cole Show. So I think that we want to make a distinction that reciprocity, having mutuality in your relationships, this doesn't mean keeping score. It's not about bean counting, right? It means that there's mutual consideration in the relationships. And I think that's important. And a lot of times, you guys, especially if you identify as being a high-functioning codependent, you're not even allowing for the mutual consideration. At least I wasn't in my youth. I think a lot of times we just feel like it's easier for me to do it. Okay, so let's expand the way we're thinking about this. If you could redesign how you participate in family obligations, what would it look like? How would you want to participate if the way you're doing it isn't really working for you or is too exhausting for you? So imagining alternatives, this is how we change things, right? It has to be a thought in your mind in order to change it. So it's not about leaving anyone else out. It's about including you in the conversation and in the way that you interact with your family of origin. Let's move into some solutions. Like, what can you do differently? So one small kind action, right? One small boundary, and then you're going to answer the question, what story do I tell myself when I say no? Because listen, we're not into blowing up our lives. That's not what we're talking about. We're really talking about making small changes, and those turn into big transformation, right? Because here's the thing about feeling guilty, right? What story do I tell myself? That's the prompt when I say no. A lot of times there's a lot of guilt there. And I have to say, for many of us, especially if you're an empath or a highly sensitive person, guilt, it's not like a reliable indicator that you did something wrong. A lot of times it's just we're habituated to feel guilty kind of about everything. So we can't really go by that, which is why journaling this out is so important, because I really want you to get to the root of how you're interacting. Here's a question that a lot of people, skip over or don't want to deal with. But I'm going to ask you to really think about it right now. What do I most need right now that I have not voiced? Really think about it. And trust me, you guys, I'm doing these exercises, and you guys can get them, terricole.com/guide. I'm doing it right along with you because I am an HFC in recovery, high functioning codependent in recovery, but I'm also a super empath. And so I need to regularly get a hold and be honest with myself about what I'm doing, how much I'm doing, how I'm feeling, how obligated I am. Because here's the thing also, nobody wants you to do that. Like, think about it. Do you want to be someone's obligation? It's really kind of presumptuous of me to assume that anyone would want to be that. But I find that I can fall back into it. So I love to, like every quarter, I sort of take a litmus test of where I am. So you're going to ask the question, and this is in one of your prompts, what do I most need right now that I haven't voiced? And just understanding that you having needs is normal and healthy. You are a human being. Of course you have needs. All right. So along with this episode is going to be basically a journal guide with all of these prompts. You can download it wherever it's going to be. So let's move into where you are right now. Do you have an idea of the changes you want to make? I had a therapy client, the one that I was telling you about, who was fiscally obligated to take care of her family. And it took us time. But over time, we were able to slowly but surely get her brother's loans back in his own name, because he'd fallen back on his feet and he could pay them off now. But she felt guilty even doing that, even though they were her brother's medical school student loans. He's now a practicing doctor. It's so interesting how when you are a high-functioning codependent, when you feel overly responsible in life for other people, you would never think that that was a fair thing to expect someone else to do for you in a million years. She would never have thought that. But somehow she felt bad. And here's the thing. The family system gets really used to you doing it. So part of these changes that you're going to be making, hopefully from this episode, you're going to do it slowly, one baby step at a time. And also understand that when we change our dance, right, our relationships dances, other people are going to notice that you're doing something different. And that doesn't mean that you should abort the mission or that you've done anything wrong. It really doesn't. It means that you're growing and that you're changing, and that when you have new information about what is and isn't working in your life, you make decisions accordingly. So if you need permission to change how obligated you are in your family of origin or in your friendship group or wherever it is, let this episode of the Terri Cole Show be that permission. Because we all have a right, and we all have limited bandwidth, you guys. Something that I really am noticing with age is that, which I'd really never noticed before. I'm 61, and I'm very aware that I have limited emotional bandwidth, and that if I don't take care of myself If I am not good with my self-consideration, as I call it, that I'm really not good for anyone else because I get in a bad mood, I don't want to do anything. So when we're talking about emotional bandwidth, that's really what this episode is about. When we have too much obligation, we are burning through our emotional bandwidth in a way that's really hard to describe. It's not the same as running a marathon, but it's like running a marathon with your brain. It can create real burnout in real life. So by sort of checking in emotionally, and you're looking at what are the emotions that arise when you think about how obligated you are, understanding the difference between internal and external pressure, understanding the role that you played in your family of origin, making the distinction between entitlement and reciprocity, imagining alternatives. How could it be different? Taking small, compassionate action for yourself, releasing guilt, really sort of looking guilt in the eye and being like, do I have something to actually feel guilty for? And the answer probably is going to be no. And then being really specific and naming what you need. Because your needs matter. And here's the thing. What you think, what you want, and how you feel. For a minute I was like, wait, what are the three things? They matter. But here's the thing, you guys. They have to matter to you the very most. So if this is an exercise that spoke to you, if it resonates with you, first of all, I want to know what you discovered in your journaling prompts. And I also want to invite you to join the TCM Weekly, which is my weekly membership where we meet every week and talk about this stuff. We have Q&As, we do workshops, I have guests that come in. But it's basically a place for accountability where you can continue working on your mental health while you're living your life. Because that's what we do there. We celebrate each other. We talk about the problems that we're going through. I give you live coaching weekly. But I also want you to look at it as a soft place to land in a hard world, you know? So anyway, I hope so much that this episode of the Terri Cole Show added value to your life. I hope you guys have the most amazing week. Let me know how it went. And as always, take care of you.